In today's video we're checking out this. It's the Perfect Prime IR0280 thermal imaging camera. Is it hot or not? Okay, so please excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold, but I wanted to kind of share my kind of thoughts and review with you on this thermal imaging camera here that the guys at Perfect Prime sent me to check out. So this is the IR0280 thermal imaging camera from Perfect Prime. This is kind of how it arrived to me. I've been trying it out for about a week, so I can talk to you a little bit about the features and kind of what I think about it, and hopefully the video will kind of help you kind of make an informed decision. So this is the packaging. Let's pop it open so you can see what's inside. Here obviously is the thermal imaging camera, which we'll speak about shortly. Inside we get a USB kind of charging cable, and then a small printed user manual. So there is their website. You can download the manual in digital form as well, and there's also a little thank you for your purchase code. Not sure kind of what that works out to be, but it mentions on here that you can register your product, 3 years warranty, 60-day money back guarantee, etc, etc. So let's pop these things to one side and kind of talk to you about the specs and everything. So I'm definitely not an expert on thermal imaging cameras. I've only used a couple in my life before, and I do have the FLIR one that attaches to my iPhone, which is a thermal imaging camera that I've reviewed before on the channel. So talk a little bit about kind of the product specs, how much it costs, etc. So as I mentioned before, this is from a company called Perfect Prime. I think they're based in Asia, so obviously you have to keep that in mind in terms of shipping, tax and duty costs depending on where you're based. At the time of doing this review in June 2019, it's currently on sale for $210. So that's around £150. So I would consider this to be kind of in the budget end of thermal imaging cameras. So I'd say the hobbyist opportunist person, if you're trying to work out if your heated seats are working or where your exhaust is leaking from or something that may come in handy. That's kind of how I think it is being positioned. 124 pixels, 32 by 32. So that's why, again, it's lower on the lower end, but still gives you some good imaging. You've got the ability to record what you're seeing on the screen as well. So talk a bit more about that. So there's a trigger here that you basically press and hold with whatever you're seeing, and you're able to record to a micro SD card which is on board. So that's just in here. This one, I'm not sure if it comes with it by default, but it came with a 16 gigabyte SanDisk card, and it just obviously pops in the side, a little rubber cover, so it's kind of weather resistant. In terms of its kind of operating parameters, it can supposedly measure and operate down from minus 30 degrees centigrade all the way up to 1000 degrees centigrade in terms of what the camera is able to kind of measure and monitor. Has a built-in battery, so you can kind of remove this enclosure with a small Phillips head screw, take that out. Obviously there's no real need to unless you need to replace the battery, but it has a lithium ion 3.6 volt 2500 milliamp hour battery in there. Seems to work quite well in terms of its power efficiency. Didn't kind of drain the battery really fast in the times that I was using it. Reasonable weight to it, but not heavy, so 230 grams. Has a tripod mount on the bottom, so obviously there's a few reasons why you may want to do that. One is obviously for the obvious reason of stability, but this also has various different modes where it can kind of trigger off alarms based on temperature variance. So one of the things that I did think actually was really accurate with this is its kind of wireless temperature monitoring capability. So when I compared it to a couple of other devices, it did seem to be pretty accurate in terms of the centigrade value of the thing it was kind of measuring in terms of heat. In terms of range, as mentioned again, because it's at the lower end, you want to really be not too much further away than 5 feet really for some really good kind of decent accuracy. As you start to get past that 5 meters, the thermal imaging capabilities tend to decrease. So again, depending on what your usage is, they do have, I guess, more professional versions of cameras that have a wider resolution and better accuracy at distance. So again, if this lower end model isn't for you, they do have other ones that might be worth considering. It's got, as I mentioned before, the radiometric temperature measurement. Also, it's Android based, so I didn't see anything myself in terms of how easy or hard it is to update, but obviously because it's based on the Android platform, it does have the ability for them to be able to upgrade software over time, bug fixes and what have you. So yeah, I think that's it in general. When you obviously record the videos, or if you want to take pictures, it can do that, stores it to the memory card. You just take that out, plug it into your machine, and you have access to it. There's 3 display modes and 3 filters, and also a zoom function. So we'll turn things on and kind of show you how it works and what you can see on the screen. So in terms of startup time, it is relatively slow. So you're not just going to pop this out your bag and be good to go in about 5 seconds. It's a slightly longer process than that. So we'll turn it on and you can see the boot up time. So press and hold the power on button. It's already in standby mode. Let me reboot it. Power off. Just so you can see fully the whole process. Right, so now it's powered down. So press and hold the power on button. And we can just see how long it takes there to start, so you get a better feel for it. When you're not using it, it kind of drops into a kind of power save mode, which then enables you to obviously turn it on and use it quicker, but you won't want to leave it in that mode long term, because it will drain your battery when it's just in your bag or wherever you're storing it. Okay, so now it's up and running, and obviously we can see what's going on the screen. So start off looking in the menu options. So you press the menu button for menus. The whole thing is touch screen, or you can use some of these buttons to help navigate around. It's quite kind of self-intuitive. So we have the option to adjust display brightness. We can set the auto monitor alarm. So if you were trying to obviously set this up on a tripod and wanted it to alarm if the temperature went above or below certain centigrade or Fahrenheit, depending on what configuration you've got, you can configure that so it would alarm and alert you to do that. Ability to configure the image format, so whether you want to save images in bitmap or JPEG. Option to delete all the things. And some options for the minimum max crosshairs. This is when you're kind of configuring it on a different device and you want to measure the heat, so you can kind of change the sizing and accuracy of that. Ability to do a factory reset, so some reason you screw something up and you've messed with the settings and you can't work out how to get it back. Obviously back to the factory reset settings. The ability to change it from centigrade to Fahrenheit. Here in the UK we use centigrade predominantly, so that's what I have it set to right now. If you're in the US, for example, where I know Fahrenheit is more popular, you can obviously change that as well. Option to set date and time. Auto off timer, so as mentioned before, perhaps you're going to leave it on the side, you don't want to turn off because you're about to come back. You can configure the auto on and off functions. The emissitivity, so this is obviously for measuring the heat and the thermals, so you can configure variants in that. As mentioned, I'm not an expert on kind of how these cameras work. There is a really good range of emissitivity settings for you to play with and try and configure it in a way that works best for you. Also, a variance of color palette. So that's one thing that I have messed around with a little bit to try and improve the picture quality, and we'll talk about that when we kind of do some hands-on viewing of the images. Next, down the bottom here, we have a color palette guide just to kind of help us and provide some guidance on what we're seeing. An option to view the images and videos that we've taken already, and then a high-low temperature alarm, bit like we mentioned before, which is similar to, just mention over here, the auto monitor alarm. So similar functionality, but slightly varied depending on what you want to do. Obviously I'm going through this with the navigation buttons here, but you can just use the touchscreen to select any of the things that you want and then press the trigger to kind of go into it. So let's have a quick look in here. Here's an example of the color palette. So again, I'm going to scroll down if you want to change those things. If you have a specific color setting in mind, again, just press the trigger to confirm the setting, and I'll take you back again. We go to guide. So this again is just a basic on or off function as to whether you want any guidance on what's being seen or not. So let's get out of the menu and show you what we have on the screen. So the guide here is at the bottom, this little kind of blue bar, and this is where you're going to start to see a little bit about the accuracy. So I will do an overlay as well that I did on the lamp over in the corner of the cave, to give you some indication of the different views and my recommendations. So one of the nice things about the camera is you can just go into a standard camera view. So if you're just looking to monitor temperatures, so where I find this kind of thing quite handy is when I used to use the fly model helicopters and race cars. They both had nitro engines, so it's quite important to see kind of what the temperature was like in the engine on the glow plug. So this is very kind of good to get accuracy. You can see very clearly kind of what the temperature is. If you push up again, then we go to kind of a half camera, half thermal imaging mode. So personally, this works best for me. I think this is where the camera seems to give you a good mix of clarity, as you can actually see what it is that you're looking at and a rough indication of the thermals related to it. When you go to full thermal imaging mode, it starts to get a bit messy unless you're really close. So back to what we said before in terms of that 5 feet, but I feel like really you need to be even closer than 5 feet to get a really good kind of assessment of what's going on. Because I don't know if you can see right now in here, it's obviously just looking at the cabinet here, but if I have my hand, so what's that, about 3 feet away, maybe something like that, as it starts to go further. I mean, you can see it, but you get much more clarity as it's closer. You also have the ability to zoom as well, so if you push this right button, it will zoom in even closer, so we can see now it's much closer on my hand. I'll press it again, it will zoom out, and you get a slight indication at the top here. Let's move you into zoom mode. Now the other thing that I think is quite good is the different modes you have for viewing. So right now we have no filtering, where you can see it's kind of more pixely. Then we have this kind of spatial temporal filter, which again I think makes it a little bit better, it improves over the no filter version. And my personal preference is the wide Gaussian filter, where it looks kind of more accurate on what you can see and do. So all I'll do is kind of, as we get towards the end of the video now, I will show you a couple of examples of what kind of the camera can see with the camera kind of looking at the screen, so you can kind of see how it works. Like I said, it does definitely benefits from having something very specific to focus on. The background temperatures can kind of skew it a little bit and make the picture a little bit messy, which to be honest isn't that great. So that's why I think it's more the lower end for a hobbyist or someone who's going to get some benefit out of that, whether it's be, like I said, working on your car, checking if your heated seat's working properly, or whether certain cables are getting too hot when you're doing electrics or whatever. I wouldn't say this is a professional grade tool, but again, it's about £150. So that may seem expensive depending on what your appetite for spend is, but in terms of thermal imaging cameras, that's pretty cheap really. So I hope that kind of helps. I personally think that for the money it's reasonable. I can't really compare it to the FLIR 1 camera I have, because that is two reasons. One is it's more expensive, and it also requires a very expensive iPhone to work with it. So hopefully this video helps you, give you kind of some idea. People had asked about some more affordable tech that had kind of come from the Asia region, so here's a perfect example of that. So I hope you consider, if this is something you're interested in buying, check out the Perfect Prime website, and I think I have a discount code as well that I can offer people 10% on their products, so I'll put that down below and in the description. Thanks again, Perfect Prime, for sending this to me so I could check it out. It's been great kind of using it and kind of putting it to the test. And yeah, we'll finish up this video with a couple of kind of video sections of me trying it out on different things, so you can see kind of how it operates in the real world. The weather is pretty crappy and wet, so keep that in mind, but it shouldn't really alter too much what you can see and what you can judge the product on.
This is how we end up, shades of blue and gray. I feel just like an empty bottle, my dreams are on delay. I just wanna climb on top of a hill and throw it all away, away. Take me far away before my mind spins off and I am all derailed, derailed. Just drive all the way to the rainbow's end. Just drive, and we'll never turn our backs again. How we end up, the game is set to play. Every day remains the same now, one decision we obey. I just wanna climb on top of a hill and throw it all away, away. Take me far away before my mind spins off and I am all derailed, derailed. Just drive all the way to the rainbow's end. Just drive, and we'll never turn our backs again.
So that's it. I hope you can tell from those example videos that this camera works really well when it's got a very specific focus temperature variance that it can kind of focus on. So whether that be the situation where I could show you is very dark and it was in the kind of airing cupboard, it identifies the heat coming to some of the pipes. When I moved it around in the room, it was very kind of confused and trying to work out kind of what the temperature variances were. But as soon as I pointed at my dog, it was very clear to understand that was a heat source, and the surrounds of it was quite cold. And didn't work too bad on the heated seat as it started to heat up as well, and the outside lights and things. So again, I think it is really good if you have a very kind of focused, targeted use in mind. But if you're trying to get access to a very kind of wide spectrum of information to call out very specific heat sources, then you probably want something of a higher resolution. But this is probably quite good kind of for the hobbyist or occasional use, especially at the price point.
Thanks for watching this video. A thumbs up would be really appreciated.
If you're interested in other geek type videos, please consider subscribing to Spectrum Geeks. Why not also follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter? And before you leave, why don't you check out one of these other videos that may be of interest. Thanks again for watching.